Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Commander Cheapskate Reviews. And on today's episode, we are taking a look at a brand new product that is provided by Games Workshop. It is another supplemental rulebook for the Necromunda line of games that Games Workshop has been pushing out. In this case, this is the House of Iron, which is a supplement that is unique specifically to House Orlock. So if you are a House Orlock player in the game of Necromunda, this book is the one for you. And in this review, we'll be talking about the digital version of the game book and the rule book specifically. So if you look over here, we're gonna have a little scroll here with our digital copy. As you can see, we have a little look, take a look at the contents here. In this review, we'll talk about some of the aspects of the book, as well as some of the rules that they have. We'll also be taking about some of the new features that this book has as well. We'll also be looking at some of the old material that's in this book that's already included in the other rule books for Necromunda thus far. And then of course, we'll determine whether this is a good buy for you or not as well. So let's go ahead and get this review started. Alright, first of all, let's go on and talk about the features of the book. So probably, as you can see here, we've got the book broken down into different sections, and we'll talk about those different sections really quickly. First of all, we have the fluff, of course, which is all the background information and the fictional materials involved with House Orlock. They actually have quite a bit of information and story dedicated to that. So if you're really big into the fluff, this book provides a lot of cool information about the Orlock gang. And I also talk a little bit about the ash wastes, which is really cool as well. But probably the most important aspect of this, though, is going to be this portion here where it talks about the House Orlock gang list. That is probably going to be the most apropos part of this that you're going to probably want to be focusing on. And the reason why is because they give you more detailed information about the different leaders, the gang composition, the fighter cards, the rosters, etc. We've seen this overhaul with the gang rules in the previous gang books that have been released thus far in the House of Chains as well as the House of Blades. And House of Iron is no different in that aspect. For example, you have what's called the Orlock Road Captain. The Orlock Road Captain, of course, is just another name for your leaders. So those are the new names for the leaders of your gang. We now talk about your champions for your gang. We have two different types. We have House Orlock Road Sergeants. Those are your typical just gang champions that you usually had before in the basic rule book from Necromunda. And then, of course, you have your brand new Arms Master, which is a special type of champion as well. And those guys, of course, are released in the new box set of miniatures for the Wreckers, as well as Arms Masters box sets as well. They also provide you brand new rules for a new class of Juve called the Orlock Wrecker. We saw this before with the other gang books where you have specialist Juves like you do in the in the House of Chains. They call them not prospects, I forget what they're called. Forgeborn, there we go. The new Forgeborn prospects, they talk about those guys in House of Chains. We also have the Wild Hunters. They're also available for the House of Blades for the Escher. So now we have Wreckers. And these guys are kind of cool because they have little jump packs that they kind of jump around everywhere. Orlock Gunners in this case are another name for your gangers. So now the gangers are just called Gunners now within an Orlock unit. And then finally, of course, you have the Orlock Greenhor, which is basically your typical juvie that you have as well. And they provide information about Cyber Mastiffs as well. Now, if you own the original rulebook for Necromunda or the original gang supplement, the pretty much the Road Captain, Road Sergeant, Gunner, and Greenhorn rules are, the Greenhorn rules are pretty much the same as they are in the old book, so you don't really need to do anything with that. Same thing with the Cyber Mastiff. So you already have rules for those, you don't really need to worry about those too much. But if you're interested specifically in the the Arms Master and the Wrecker rules, you'll need to buy this book in order to do that. Also, you have, of course, your typical hanger-ons and brutes as well. These guys are, of course, your hired guns you can have. Most of them are pretty much the same as throughout all the books. Gang lookouts, road docks, ammo jacks, dome runners. These are all exactly the same as before. Even their Orlock Lugger Cargo Servitor, still the same as well, so no difference there. However, there is a new set of hanger-ons you can hire. You have Bullet Merchants, which help you out with weapons. You have Grease Monkeys, will help you out with your brutes like your luggers and your ambots, as well as your wreckers. And you also have what's called a prize fighter, which is kind of like a bare knuckles fighter, which is actually kind of a neat little thing that they have going on as well. Same thing with hired guns, hive scum, bounty hunters. Those are all exactly the same as the old books as well. However, the new house agents are also unique. This is a new feature they've added in all the books so far, so each of the different gangs can actually call upon the favor of their house to send a house agent to help them out. And just like in the other books, this house agent is unique to House Orlock as well. Now, over here on the other side, let's go and talk about some of the alliances that they have. The alliance system was, of course, introduced within the Book of Judgment as well as the Book of Peril that came out earlier. The Book of Peril talks about different guilder alliances that you can make with the different guilds of Necromunda, and the Book of Judgment allows you to make alliances with criminal organizations. So as long as you have those rule books, you don't necessarily need this one if you have those books as well, because the preferred guild that the Orlocks ally themselves with is the Guild of Coin in this case. And as for the criminal organization, it's the Fallen Houses that they are associated with, the Fallen House aspect of that. So those are all the same from the previous books I mentioned before, from the Book of Judgment as well as from the Book of Perils. However, the brand new alliance that you have, of course, are the Noble House alliances. We talked about these in the other books that have come out so far with the House of Chains and the House of Blades. They're all associated with specific noble houses. In this case, they're associated with a house called House Ranlow, which is an accounting type noble house. They run basically the economy of Necromunda. So you actually have some new rules attached to that noble house if you want to make a noble house alliance, which is actually really cool as well. And just like last time, with additional rules as well, we do have your House Orlock favors, so favors specific to the gang, as well as subplots, which have been available in all the other Pacific books as well. But we also have a brand new skill set called Bravado Skills. So with the House of Chains, the Goliaths had the Muscle skill that was brand new to them. You had the Finesse skill, which was brand new to the House Escher, and now Orlock follows the same with the Bravado skills. And these ones are kind of neat because it kind of represents, you know, the more thematic elements of the gang. Things like they're really good at fighting one-on-one because, you know, Orlock gangers have to, you know, rise up through the ranks and stuff. Another really cool, unique feature for the Orlock gang is what's called the legendary names. The legendary names kind of work like the big names from Ogre Kingdom's Warhammer Fantasy Battle. We've saw these kind of new rules breaking out for the different gangs so far in the gang supplements. So like for the House Goliath, you had your Vat Grown abilities where you could buy bonuses for your Goliaths to represent the fact they've been genetically manipulated. You can do the same thing with Chems that were used for the Eschers and the House of Blades as well. And so this is what House Orlock has. They have legendary names. They got 3 types of names you can use. You have what's called Unbelievable Escapes, which makes your your gang members more survivable in combat. You have Impressive Leadership, which gives them buffs to their leadership abilities and cool tests and things of that nature. And you have Improbable Beatdowns, which are your offensive abilities for your gangs. For example, one of them is like using 2 guns, for example, using 2 pistols. Like if your character uses 2 pistols and kills people, your enemy has to take nerve tests to see if they break because they're just so impressed by how your guy just gunned down everybody. And just like in the other supplements, we have 2 new House Orlock scenarios as well as specific Orlock terrain that's associated with the gang as well. Of course, we have our weapons charts for the new weapons. There's not that many new weapons in this one. It's pretty much all the same. You have some oldies but goodies that have been given the Master Crafted quote-unquote name attached to those, so those are some new rules there. As well as the new Arc Hammer, which is the weapon that's used by the Arms Master, for example. So there's not very much new information there. Probably the newest information that's in this book is for the Arms Master and the Wrecker abilities and the equipment that they carry. So that's an example of that. And just like always, you have your house tactic table, which is really, really nice. It's a D66 table. You can roll off your house tactics, and you can use those in your gang for your games as well. That's another really nice feature too. And of course, we have your Dramatis Personae, which, you know, you may or may not like those. I'm indifferent to those, so I'm not really going to go too much in detail with the Dramatis Personae, but yeah, that's pretty much how it works. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about your house gang list and some of the things that you can get for this one. And let's get this review on a roll. Alright, so let's go and talk about your Orlock gang list real quick. So as you can see here, they provide all the additional information that you usually have for equipping your leader and things of that nature. So as you can see, the Orlock Road Captain, he's still the leader, and yes, they still have 3 wounds. That's another key feature about these guys, which is really cool as well. They talk about your gang activations and stuff like that, just like you have in the other supplements as well. Probably the biggest one, of course, is it shows you, of course, the different types of weapons and equipment that your character can carry around as well. It's kind of neat because now your leaders can have like up to 3 Siren Mastiffs, so I think Siren Mastiffs are going to play a huge role future on because you can get those guys to help you out as well. And as you can see here as well, you also got your tables up here. They, like I said before, you have that Bravado table that kind of shows here as well. And then, of course, you have your typical Road Sergeant rules, which is your typical champion, your standard champion from the old rule books, and the equipment and stuff that they can use as well. But like I said before, like probably the biggest one here is your Arms Master. As you can see, your Arms Master is very, very important. They have this cool little thing called Rule of Iron, and these are the guys who basically keep the fighters in line when it comes to Nerves of Steel. You know, they actually have that whenever they're within distance of this guy, because he's the Arms Master is the guy who makes sure that the gangers do what they're told. They're like the enforcers for the gang itself to keep the guys in line, which is actually kind of neat. And they also, of course, once again, have their own little set of unique weapons and equipment that they can also use for themselves as well, which is actually kind of cool. They're kind of like, they're very, as you can see here with their equipment list, they're very much oriented for close combat. So one of the problems that a lot of Orlocks have is that Orlock traditionally have been very much the catch-all, just kind of very generic kind of gang. They don't have any real weaknesses or real strengths, and so because of that, this kind of helps you out with that, making the Arms Master a deadlier close combat fighter, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, you have your Wreckers, which are those guys with the little jump packs that can, you know, rocket around and stuff like that. These are very much like the Wild Hunt, as well as the Forgeborn rules that they have with their hot-headed and fast learner abilities. They also have their jump packs, which come standard with their price. That's also included in their price as well. As you can see here, they have, of course, their rules set for weapons and things that they can use as well. And it's kind of neat because these guys also have shooting as his primary skill, which is actually kind of interesting. In fact, let me go back here real quick. As you can see, shooting is not really much of a thing for most people, but your prospectors, though, that's one of their primary skills is shooting, which is actually kind of nice. Kind of throws it back to the good old days of Necromunda, back in the classic edition of Necromunda. And of course, you have your House Orlock Gunner, exactly the same thing. That is your Ganger. As you can see, they actually took a little bit of a price decrease, which is actually kind of nice on that one. So they're not as expensive as they used to be as well. And the reason why that is the case is because you have to buy everything for them all over again. So they don't come with mesh armor standard. You actually have to pay that for that now. But as you can see, they have a lot of interesting things as well. They have their primary, focuses again, shooting being one of them again, which is actually kind of cool. And then, of course, you have your Greenhorns once again. These are just your typical juvies that you've always had inside of your gang. And of course, you have their primary skill sets and their equipment as well. And like I said before, with Cyber Mastiffs, the Cyber Mastiff rule hasn't really changed all that much. It's exactly the same as the old books. So, if you're worried about buying, this rule book in order to do the Cyber Mastiffs, you don't necessarily need to do that if you don't want to. So, that part's kind of nice as well. So let's go back to the table of contents real quick. So now we talked about that, let's go on and talk about your hang-arounds and your brutes real quick. So for most of them, it's pretty much the same, except for the new ones here. Like I said before, the new ones, for example, we have the Bullet Merchant. Any gang can hire this guy, but they get a nice discount for House Orlock guys. They give you guys some bonuses for the trading posts. Same thing with the Grease Monkey. Like I said, they have this overcharge rule, which really works out for your prospects, as well as for any brutes that are mechanical based, which is kind of neat as well. And of course, you have your Prize Fighter, which is a fighter who just uses, no equipment. They just run around and just beat up people with their bare fists, which is always kind of cool as well. So that's an example of what you have there. The rules or everything else is still exactly the same. Let's see, we got your house agents, of course, and you guys have seen this with the hiring fee varies. And depending on what kind of stuff you're looking for your gang, for your house agent, you can make them unique and use them in your gang like they provide in other ones as well. So for example, we have this character now, Margot Mordena. She's kind of like Furiosa from Mad Max Fury Road, which is kind of a neat character that we have there as well. And of course, we talk about your alliances as well. As you can see, we have the House of Coin. Those are the Guild of Coin, I'm sorry. That's the guild that they are familiar with as well. So they talked a little about that. The criminal elements that they're allied with is the House, the Fallen House, House of Ranthus, for example. That's an old house they talk about in the fluff. So that's where we have that. And then, of course, you have your noble house of House Ranlow, which, of course, is, run responsible for running the economy of Necromunda for Lord Helmwar, as you can see there. So that's another noble house there. And then, of course, they have their toll collectors and their rules for those characters as well, which is actually kind of neat. So you have your House Ranlow auditing conclave. So you have some new guys called a Guild Scrivener and your auditor. And as you can see, they provide you with information about those guys, just like how you did in the previous 2 books that came up before this as well. So continuing on with our additional rules, you can see we have the new bravado skills. And this is all about relying upon other members of your team. There's a lot of teamwork type of things like Bring It On and Big Brother, stuff like that. So those are some new rules they've attached for those guys for their bravado skills. And like I said before, we have the legendary names. As you can see, you're using legendary names. Your fighter can have up to 2 legendary names, and any fighter with a gang hierarchy or special rule can have up to 3. So your champions and your leaders, for example, can have 3 legendary names, or he else has 2 names as well. So you can see they have the little tables here they actually show the different names. And the part about that, which is kind of cool, is that you could pay, I think it's 3 experience points to randomly get one, or you could pay 6 experience points to pick a specific one if you want to. So you can really customize your leader as well. And as you can see here, we also have Orlock terrain that's also brand new to the gang. We have things like road relics, toolboxes, servitors, sentries, promethium barrels, sawed-off shotgun traps, all kinds of different things that you have there for your Orlock terrain too. And like I said before, you also have your weapons charts as well. As you can see, we have your, like I said, for the most part, it's mainly the same as always, except like they have things like master crafted bolt gun, master crafted bolt pistols, things of that nature, for example, as well. They have some different weapons there. So like the close combat, for example, the one that's probably brand new is the arc hammer. That's what your arms masters carry. It's strength +3, -1 AP, 3 damage as well. So that is a brutal close combat weapon. I'm really excited about using that for my Orlock gang specifically that I have going in as well. As you see, they also provide information about armor and different equipment. Same thing with the jump pack as well. They also provide that too. And then of course, one of the coolest aspects of this is that they provide your house Orlock gang tactics in a D66 table, so you don't have to worry about buying the cards anymore. So that is super nice, and you can just roll off on those to use those and use them for your gang as well. And then of course, they show you with the different clan houses and the maps and stuff like that, as you can see here. So like I can see here, the great houses are up here in the spire. Then you have your clan houses down below. That's what we were talking about before, which is actually kind of cool as well. And of course, your map in Necromunda, as always, which is really cool. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is pretty much it for the review for House Orlock, the House of the House of Iron. In my opinion, this is actually a pretty good buy, especially if you're an Orlock player. If you're an Orlock player, you should definitely get this one, just because they give you some additional information for your gangers and customization rules, especially when you have your Orlock legendary names as well as your Orlock gang tactics. I'm going to be playing an Orlock gang in my next campaign, so this one's going to be very important for me to use. And it's really helpful. If you're not a House Orlock player, you don't necessarily need this book. Like I said before, if you have that Book of Judgment or the Book of Perils, you know, the alliances here, you have that already in those books, and everything else is pretty much the same throughout for the hanger-ons and brutes and stuff. So there's not much difference. If you're interested in getting these 3 specific ones, Prize Fighter, Grease Monkey, and Bullet Merchant, might be a good buy for you. So for my opinion, it's a good buy. I got the digital version, which is cheaper than the physical copy one, so it's all good for me. So you have you guys, there you go. That's the review that we have for the Necromunda House of Iron. As always, guys, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good for this, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.